Alright everybody, how's it going? Sam here with another Nomad Survival video, and today we're going to be going over why I think the Cultist is the greatest class in this game, and why I think you might like it too. So the Cultist is the third class that is in the game. You do not have to unlock it here, so it's also one of the ones that you start off with. And the Cultist is my personal favorite class, the reason being that it is just insanely overpowered. I think it has the best weapon ability for just general AoE clear, and the fact that there's one special thing about its weapon skill that I really like, but we'll get into that later. So the Cultist, its skill is 300 SP. As you can tell, going left to right, you go up 100 SP every single time. So the Cultist is the third character. Its ability is 300 SP. Its ability is called Blood Curse, and basically it's just a one-shot damage. So it one-shots any enemy outside of bosses, and it causes them to explode, dealing additional damage. At level 20 and level 40, it ups the damage of the explosion as well as makes the explosion larger. In regards to what heritages are going to be the best with this class, there's really only one you should consider, and that's gonna be the Nomad. The reason being, statue, again, it's more of a meme, like play it if you want to and you want to have fun. Other than that, you don't get to use it for modifiers or challenges, so you're not going to be using this to farm anything outside of maybe souls and gold. The merchant, same thing as always, really good for specific situations. Summoner, if you're having issues with projectiles, I highly recommend the Summoner, because the Summoner can destroy those projectiles. Other than that, no real reason to play it. The Voidwalker, normally something I would worry about, but you're not really going to end up getting touched very often as the Cultist. Maybe the first like 30 seconds of the game, they have a chance, but after that, you're good to go. And then Poxbringer and Berserker, none of these, like, these don't matter at all because your weapon skill is a one-shot. Like, the double damage on the explosion might be nice, but it's so unnecessary, and you'll see why later. So highly recommend the Nomad so that you can get those extra rerolls, so that you can get your SP regen as fast as possible. The Cultist is easily my favorite. It's just such a strong character with this giant AoE explosion that is just fantastic, honestly. You could do so many playthroughs just using this weapon ability. I love it. I think it works really well when you get a ton of SP regen so that you're casting as much as possible. You want to throw in things like max skill size, so that increases the explosion size of your character, and then always throw in things like item pickup range. If you want to go Immaterial Cloak, you can go Immaterial Cloak level 5. That also has the same effect. You can play with the Raccoon Pet. The Raccoon Pet has the ability to magnetize experience towards you, so that's also very strong. And then I would pick up things like Study as well. The only thing that you're going to need for this character is a ability that will be able to destroy the bosses. The reason being, your weapon skill unfortunately cannot target bosses, so that is one of its negative. The only negative of this class is that you can't target bosses, but other than that, there's almost no negatives about this class because the clear is just absolutely insane. If you throw in things like Death Sting that are going to give you that additional AoE, so when the explosion goes off, those explosions have a chance of dealing that one hit damage, and throw in Curse also, so you just get to see corpses exploding all over the place. Highly recommend. It is such a strong class, especially on this map. Your clear is just absolutely insane. So once you pick up a skill, to make sure that the bosses die, I recommend something like Magic Missile or maybe Fireball, as those are both abilities that target the enemy closest to you. This is going to make it to where you can just walk right next to the boss and you'll kill it very quickly. Generally, I always recommend Fireball because Fireball is just extremely strong, whereas Magic Missile, they fixed the aiming on it, but it had some issues with aim, but I don't believe that's a problem anymore. You can see how big the explosion is now. They're almost like half of this walkway, so it's something that's ginormous. Honestly, it's a really nice clear, so you can make that larger with max skill size, which is why I recommend it. And other than that, you really have nothing to worry about. I honestly can't even tell you how many runs I've done with this class when I started playing this game. I didn't touch any of the other characters. I thought they were all chopped liver in comparison to the Cultist. The Cultist is just such a strong class because of this AoE. I mean, just look, it's just wiping literally everything. So I think it's the best class in the game. The only negative is that when you're trying to do modifier runs, so say you're farming for anything like gemstones, basically, that's really the main one, the Cultist isn't the strongest because it doesn't have any type of a vulnerability or defense increase. So classes like the Whisper, the Divine, and the Knight, and even the Quickling, they all have some sort of built-in feature with their weapon skill that either gives them HP regen, gives them increased armor, you're immune to projectiles, and the Cultist doesn't really have anything like that, neither do any of the beginning characters really. So when you're trying to do a run like that, you're not going to have the most luck, basically, unfortunately. That's the only negative. So in situations when you're trying to farm for gemstones, I always recommend Whisper or the Knight. Now, the Cultist coming into the beta is also one of the classes that has had its upgrades partially done. It only gets better. Your AoE just gets a little bit absurd. You have some nice like leftover AoE blood pools that deal damage as well. It's gonna work really well with Death Sting, so I will link that video down below so that you guys can take a look at what the beta is looking like for the Cultist. And finally, we're gonna move on to, I think, one of the best things about this character. So map events are technically coded as enemies, and if you just saw that, the Cultist's weapon ability can target those. So the crystal chests on the first map, the portals on the second map, and then the red crystals, the red glowing crystals on the third map, all of those are technically enemies that the Cultist can one-shot. So if you're having issues with those map events, not exactly on the first or the second map, it's mainly for the third, because the third map actually impacts the health of enemies, you could just walk next to it, it'll target it relatively quickly, and you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to like stand there. There's some really terrible locations on the third map that the red crystal spawns occasionally that's basically meant to put you in a bad situation, and this character basically solves that issue. And I mean, look at this. We haven't seen anything on the screen for the last like 2 minutes. Nothing gets close to you. This class is so strong. So anyone having any issues with literally everything, I highly, 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 highly recommend it. This is the only situation. I didn't pick up a bossing skill because I was just kind of grabbing whatever. And so I can't kill this boss particularly fast. But that's literally the only negative, and that would just be rectified by picking up something like Fireball. So as always, guys, I really appreciate the support, and I will see you on the next one.